The morning sun cast long shadows across the palace gardens as William stood by the tall windows of his private study. His hands trembled slightly as he held the letter that had arrived just an hour before. The words seemed to blur together, but their meaning was crystal clear. The doctors had given Kate 6 months, maybe less. He remembered the day they first met at university. Kate had been laughing with her friends in the hallway, her hair catching the light from the windows. Something about her genuine smile had made him stop in his tracks. Unlike everyone else who treated him differently because of his title, she had simply looked at him as William, not as a prince. Their friendship had grown slowly over shared study sessions and late-night conversations about everything except his royal duties. Kate never asked about the crown or the cameras that followed him everywhere. Instead, she talked about books, dreams, and the simple joy of watching sunsets from their dormitory windows. The first time he knew he loved her was during a particularly difficult exam period. While other students either avoided him or tried too hard to impress him, Kate had simply brought him a cup of tea and sat quietly beside him in the library. No words were needed. Her presence was enough to calm the storm in his mind. Years later, when he finally gathered the courage to propose, he chose his mother's ring. As he slipped it onto Kate's finger in that remote cabin in Kenya, he promised her a lifetime of adventures together. She had laughed through her tears, saying she never imagined falling in love with someone whose grandmother lived in a castle. Their wedding day had been a fairy tale watched by millions around the world. But the moments William treasured most were the quiet ones afterward. Kate falling asleep with her head on his shoulder during long flights, her terrible attempts at cooking breakfast on Sunday mornings, and the way she could make him laugh until his sides hurt with her impressions of stuffy palace officials. When their children arrived, William watched Kate transform into the mother he had always known she would be. She read bedtime stories with different voices for each character, built elaborate blanket forts in the palace corridors, and somehow managed to make their royal children feel completely normal. On school runs, she was just another mother chatting with other parents at the gate. The diagnosis had come without warning. Kate had been feeling tired, but they attributed it to their busy schedule. When the test came back, the doctor's serious expression told them everything before he even spoke. William felt his world shift beneath his feet, but Kate had simply taken his hand and squeezed it gently. Now, as he stood in his study holding this latest update from her medical team, William realized how much their lives had changed in such a short time. The woman who had once climbed mountains with him was now struggling to climb the stairs. Yet her spirit remained unbroken, her smile still lighting up every room she entered. He thought about all the official engagements they would have to cancel, all the public appearances that would never happen. But more than that, he thought about the private moments they were losing, the quiet Sunday mornings in bed, the walks through their private gardens, and the simple pleasure of growing old together. The palace staff had begun speaking in hushed tones, their eyes filled with sympathy whenever they looked at him. Everyone knew what was coming, but no one dared speak of it openly. The British public, who had watched Kate bloom from a shy university student into a beloved princess, remained unaware of how serious her condition had become. William folded the letter carefully and placed it in his desk drawer. Soon, very soon, they would have to tell the children. Charlotte was old enough to understand that Mummy was very sick, but how do you explain to a child that their mother might not be there to see them grow up? As he walked toward Kate's room, William steeled himself to be strong. She needed him to be her rock, just as she had always been his. Whatever time they had left together, he was determined to make every moment count. The fairy tale might be ending, but their love story would continue in the memories they had built and the children who carried pieces of both of them forward into the future. Kate sat in her favorite armchair by the window, watching the rain create patterns on the glass. The treatments had left her weak, but her mind remained sharp. She could see the worry in William's eyes every time he looked at her, though he tried his best to hide it behind encouraging smiles and cheerful conversation. The children bounced into the room, their school uniforms slightly rumpled from the day's adventures. George immediately launched into a detailed account of his football match, while Charlotte showed off a drawing she had made of their family. Louis, still too young to understand the gravity of the situation, simply climbed onto Kate's lap and snuggled against her chest. These moments had become precious beyond measure. Kate memorized every detail. The way George's voice cracked slightly when he got excited. Charlotte's habit of tucking her hair behind her ear when concentrating, and Louis's infectious giggle that could brighten even the darkest days. She knew there would come a time when these sounds would exist only in her memory and William's. The doctors had been kind but honest about her prognosis. The aggressive treatment might buy them more time, but it would also steal away much of her remaining strength. Kate had made the difficult decision to focus on quality rather than quantity. She wanted to be present for her family, not bedridden and fighting a battle she couldn't win. William had initially protested her choice, begging her to try every possible treatment. But when she explained that she wanted their children to remember her as their vibrant mother rather than a patient, he finally understood. His love for her meant respecting her wishes even when they broke his heart. The palace had quietly begun making arrangements. Public appearances were scaled back significantly, with Kate only attending the most important events. The press had noticed her absence but accepted the official explanation of a minor health issue requiring rest. Only a small circle of trusted staff and family members knew the full truth. Kate spent her mornings reading to the children and helping with their homework. Her afternoons were often filled with quiet conversations with William, sharing memories and dreams they had built together. They talked about the trips they had taken, the causes they had championed, and the legacy they hoped to leave behind. Some days were harder than others. When the pain became too much, Kate would retreat to her room, not wanting the children to see her struggle. William would sit beside her bed, sometimes talking, sometimes just holding her hand in comfortable silence. Their love had always been built on understanding each other without need for words. The royal duties that had once seemed so important began to fade into the background. What mattered now were the small, intimate moments that made up a life truly lived. Kate treasured the feeling of Charlotte brushing her hair before bedtime, George's proud smile when he mastered a difficult piece on the piano, and Louis's sleepy questions about why the moon followed their car. She began writing letters to her children, one for each birthday they would celebrate without her. In careful handwriting, she poured out her love, hopes, and dreams for their futures. She wanted them to know how proud she was of them, and how much joy they had brought to her life. Each letter was sealed and dated, a mother's love preserved for years to come. Kate also spent time with her parents and siblings, creating new memories while revisiting old ones. Her mother struggled to maintain composure during these visits, but Kate's strength helped everyone find moments of laughter and joy even in the midst of sorrow. They looked through photo albums, sharing stories and inside jokes that had shaped their family over the years. The hardest conversations were with William about the practical matters that would follow her death. They discussed how to help the children grieve, what traditions she wanted them to continue, and how to preserve her memory in their daily lives. Kate wanted their home to remain filled with love and laughter, not become a shrine to her memory. As autumn deepened into winter, Kate noticed how differently she experienced each day. Colors seemed more vivid, sounds more meaningful, and touches more precious. Every sunset felt like a gift, every shared meal like a celebration. She was learning to find beauty in the smallest moments, understanding finally what people meant when they talked about truly living in the present. The support from their closest friends had been overwhelming. Instead of tiptoeing around the reality of her illness, Kate encouraged everyone to treat her normally. She wanted laughter, not tears, and memories, not pity. Her grace in facing the inevitable inspired everyone around her to cherish their own lives more deeply. The Christmas season arrived with an unusual quiet settling over their home. Kate had insisted on decorating the tree with the children, though William noticed how often she needed to rest between hanging ornaments. Her determination to create normal, joyful memories for their family touched his heart, even as it worried him. Charlotte had become increasingly protective of her mother, often bringing Kate blankets without being asked or sitting quietly beside her when the fatigue became overwhelming. George, trying to be brave like his father, took on small responsibilities around the house, proudly reporting to William about tasks he had completed. Louis remained blissfully unaware of the weight settling over their family, his innocent energy providing moments of lightness that everyone desperately needed. The royal Christmas traditions felt different this year. Kate participated when she could, but many of the formal ceremonies had to proceed without her. The Queen, understanding the gravity of the situation, had quietly adjusted plans to accommodate Kate's condition. Family dinners were moved to more intimate settings, and the usual pageantry was toned down to focus on what truly mattered. Kate found herself thinking often about legacy and what she would leave behind. Beyond the charitable work and public service, she wanted her children to remember the small things that made their family special. She began recording voice messages for them, reading their favorite bedtime stories so that William could play them later, when her voice was no longer there to comfort them. The winter months brought a noticeable decline in Kate's energy. Simple activities that she had once enjoyed now required careful planning and frequent rest periods. William watched helplessly as the woman who had once kept up with him on hiking trails now struggled to walk around their garden. Yet her spirit remained remarkably intact, finding joy in watching snow fall or hearing the children's excited chatter about school projects. Kate had always been private about her emotions, but the illness seemed to strip away some of her natural reserve. She began expressing her feelings more openly, telling William daily how much she loved him and how grateful she was for their life together. These conversations, once difficult for someone so naturally modest, became precious exchanges that strengthened their bond even as time worked against them. The medical team continued their visits, adjusting treatments to keep Kate as comfortable as possible. The focus had shifted entirely to pain management and quality of life. Kate faced each appointment with remarkable composure, asking practical questions about what to expect and how to best prepare her family for the changes ahead. William found himself taking photographs constantly, desperate to capture every expression, every smile, every moment of Kate looking at their children with pure love. He filled albums that he hoped would help preserve her memory for Louis, who was still too young to form lasting memories of his mother. Each picture told the story of a woman facing the impossible with grace and courage. The children's school had been discreetly informed about the family situation, allowing for flexibility when emotions occasionally overwhelmed one of them during the day. Kate appreciated how normally everyone tried to treat the children, understanding that they needed stability and routine even as their world was quietly changing. Spring brought both hope and heartbreak. Kate rallied somewhat in the warmer weather, able to spend more time in their garden and even take short walks with the family. But everyone could see that these improvements were temporary, brief gifts of time that made each day even more precious. The daffodils bloomed as they always did, but this year Kate looked at them with the knowledge that she might not see them bloom again. Kate began having longer conversations with each child individually, sharing stories about her own childhood and asking about their dreams for the future. She wanted them to know her not just as their mother, but as a person with her own hopes, fears, and funny memories. These talks often happened during quiet afternoon hours when the house was peaceful and interruptions were rare. The palace staff, who had served Kate with devotion for years, struggled to maintain their professional composure. She had always treated them as valued members of an extended family, rather than mere employees. Now, many found themselves fighting back tears during routine interactions, moved by her continued kindness and concern for their own families even while facing her own mortality. William noticed how Kate had begun giving away personal items, presenting jewelry to close friends with stories about when she had worn each piece. She explained that she wanted these treasures to continue bringing joy, rather than sitting unused after she was gone. Each gift came with a memory and a request that the recipient wear it and think of happy times they had shared together. The decision to tell the children the complete truth came on a quiet Sunday morning in early spring. Kate had grown weaker over the past weeks, and both she and William knew they could no longer protect the children from the reality of what was happening. The conversation took place in their private sitting room, away from staff and the outside world. Charlotte, always perceptive, had already begun asking difficult questions about why Mummy slept so much and why there were so many doctor visits. George had noticed the hushed conversations between adults and the way people looked at their family with sad, careful expressions. Even Louis, in his innocent way, had begun asking when Mummy would feel better. William sat beside Kate on the sofa, while the children gathered around them. Kate's voice remained steady as she explained that she was very sick, and that the doctors couldn't make her better. She told them that while this was incredibly sad, they needed to use their time together to create as many happy memories as possible. The room fell silent except for the gentle ticking of the antique clock on the mantelpiece. Charlotte was the first to cry, burying her face against Kate's shoulder. George tried to be brave but couldn't stop the tears from coming. Louis, not fully understanding but sensing the sadness of his siblings, began crying too. Kate held them all as best she could, her own tears mixing with theirs as William wrapped his arms around the entire family. The weeks that followed brought a strange mixture of profound sadness and unexpected joy. The children seemed to understand instinctively that their time with Kate was limited, and they began requesting specific activities and conversations. Charlotte wanted to learn how to braid hair the way Kate did. George asked her to teach him the lullaby she had sung to him as a baby. Louis simply wanted to be held more often, as if physical closeness could somehow prevent what was coming. Kate's energy continued to decline, but she managed to fulfill many of these special requests. She spent an afternoon teaching Charlotte how to make the chocolate chip cookies that had become a family tradition. With George, she recorded videos of herself playing his favorite pieces on the piano, so he could continue learning them after she was gone. For Louis, she created a special photo book filled with pictures of their adventures together, each page telling a story he could understand. The royal responsibilities that had once seemed so important faded into the background. William's staff quietly rearranged his schedule to eliminate all but the most essential duties. The public began to notice Kate's extended absence, but the palace maintained that she was recovering from a minor health issue and would return to public life when ready. Kate found unexpected peace in the simplicity of their new routine. Mornings were for the children, afternoons for rest, and evenings for quiet conversations with William. She no longer worried about upcoming engagements or public expectations. Her world had narrowed to the people and moments that truly mattered, and in this smaller, more intimate space, she discovered a different kind of happiness. The support from their families had been unwavering. Kate's parents visited frequently, helping with the children and providing emotional support for William. His father and stepmother also made regular visits, their usually formal relationship with Kate softening into something more tender and immediate. The Queen, despite her advanced age, made special trips to spend time with Kate and the children. Understanding that these moments were irreplaceable, Kate began experiencing what she privately called lucid moments, periods when the fog of medication and fatigue lifted, allowing her to feel almost like her old self. During these times, she would suggest spontaneous activities like picnics in the garden or impromptu dance parties in the music room. These bursts of energy became treasured gifts for the entire family. The medical team had adjusted their approach to focus entirely on Kate's comfort and the family's emotional needs. Regular checkups became opportunities for Kate to ask practical questions about the progression of her illness and how to best prepare her children for what lay ahead. She faced these conversations with remarkable composure, treating them as planning sessions rather than death sentences. William found himself documenting everything. Kate's voice, her gestures, her opinions on everything from current events to the children's future education. He created detailed notes about her preferences and traditions, determined that their children would grow up knowing not just that their mother had loved them, but understanding exactly who she had been as a person. The changing seasons took on new significance as spring moved toward summer. Kate spent increasing amounts of time in their garden, finding comfort in the eternal cycle of growth and renewal. She planted flowers with the children, explaining that these blooms would remind them of her love even when she couldn't be there to see them grow. Each seed planted became a promise that beauty would continue even after loss. The summer brought both Kate's favorite weather and the unmistakable signs that their time together was growing short. She spent most of her days in bed now, though she insisted the children continue their normal routines of school and activities. From her bedroom window, she could watch them play in the garden, their laughter floating up to her like music. William had moved his office to the small sitting room adjacent to their bedroom, allowing him to work while remaining close to Kate. He found it increasingly difficult to concentrate on official papers when he could hear her labored breathing or when she called his name softly in the night. Sleep had become elusive for both of them, though for different reasons. The children had adapted to their mother's condition with remarkable resilience, though each showed their worry in different ways. Charlotte had become Kate's unofficial caretaker, bringing her water and reading aloud from books they had once enjoyed together. George approached his mother's illness with practical questions, wanting to understand exactly what was happening and why the doctors couldn't fix it. Louis continued to climb into bed with Kate whenever possible, his small presence providing comfort that no medicine could match. Kate's good days had become increasingly rare, but when they came, the family made the most of them. On one particularly clear morning, she managed to sit in the garden for several hours, watching the children chase butterflies and listening to William read the newspaper aloud. These moments felt stolen from time itself, precious beyond anything she had ever experienced. The letters Kate had been writing to her children were nearly complete. Each envelope contained years of birthdays, graduations, and milestones she would miss. She had written about her hopes for their futures, shared family stories they were too young to remember, and tried to capture in words the depth of her love for each of them. William promised to deliver these letters at the appropriate times, understanding that they would become his most sacred responsibility. The doctors had warned that Kate's condition could deteriorate rapidly once her body began shutting down. The conversation about her final wishes had been difficult but necessary. Kate wanted to die at home, surrounded by her family, not in a hospital filled with machines and strangers. She had chosen the music she wanted played and the readings she hoped would comfort those she left behind. William struggled with the reality that soon he would face life as a single father to 3 young children while fulfilling his royal duties. Kate spent considerable time talking with him about practical matters, which schools the children should attend, how to handle their questions about her death, and ways to keep her memory alive without making it a burden for their future happiness. The palace had begun making discreet preparations for the inevitable announcement. Staff members who had served Kate faithfully were quietly informed so they could prepare for the difficult days ahead. The press office worked on statements that would honor Kate's life while protecting the family's privacy during their grief. Everything was handled with the utmost care and respect for the family's wishes. Kate's strength failed noticeably as summer moved into early autumn. Simple conversations exhausted her, and she slept for longer periods each day, yet when awake her mind remained clear, and her concern for others never wavered. She asked detailed questions about the children's schoolwork, William's upcoming engagements, and even the well-being of staff members who had cared for her. The family began spending most of their time in Kate's bedroom, transforming it into a cozy gathering place. The children did homework at the small table by the window while Kate dozed nearby. William conducted necessary phone calls from the chair beside her bed. Meals were often shared on the comfortable sofa, creating intimate family moments that felt both ordinary and extraordinary. Kate's parents maintained a constant presence during these final weeks, providing practical support and emotional comfort for everyone. Her mother helped with household routines while her father engaged the children in gentle activities that kept them occupied without taking them too far from Kate's side. Their love for their daughter was evident in every gesture and kindness. The changing light of autumn seemed to echo the changes in Kate herself. She spoke more quietly now, conserving energy for the conversations that mattered most. Each exchange with the children became intentionally meaningful, filled with expressions of love and encouragement for their futures. She told them repeatedly how proud she was of them and how confident she felt about the people they were becoming. William found himself memorizing everything about these last precious weeks. The way Kate's hand felt in his, the sound of her voice calling the children's names, and the peaceful expression on her face when pain medication finally allowed her to rest comfortably. He understood that these memories would need to sustain him through the difficult years ahead, and he gathered them like treasures against future loneliness. The morning came when Kate could no longer get out of bed, though her eyes remained bright and aware. The children understood without being told that this was different from her previous bad days. They gathered quietly around her bed, their usual energetic chatter replaced by gentle whispers and careful movements. William called the doctor, who confirmed what they all knew, but hadn't wanted to acknowledge. Kate likely had only days, perhaps hours remaining. The medical team would continue providing comfort care, but the focus now shifted entirely to ensuring Kate's peace and the family's ability to say goodbye properly. Kate's voice had grown weak, but her words carried tremendous weight during these final conversations. She told each child individual things she wanted them to remember: Charlotte's artistic talent and kind heart, George's intelligence and natural leadership, and Louis's joyful spirit that brought light to every room. These weren't just compliments, but carefully chosen observations that would help shape how the children saw themselves in years to come. The afternoon, sun streamed through the bedroom windows as Kate asked William to bring her jewelry box. With trembling hands, she selected specific pieces for Charlotte, explaining the stories behind each one. The earrings William had given her for their first anniversary, the bracelet his mother had worn, and the simple necklace Kate had bought herself as a university student. Each piece carried history and love that would connect Charlotte to her mother's memory. For the boys, Kate had prepared different kinds of legacy gifts. George received his grandfather's watch, which Kate had kept safe for this moment, along with a leather journal filled with her thoughts about leadership and responsibility. Louis, still too young for such weighty gifts, was given a simple wooden toy that had been Kate's own as a child, something tangible he could hold when he missed her. The evening brought a quiet dinner in Kate's room, with everyone eating from trays while sitting on the bed or nearby chairs. It felt like an indoor picnic, casual and warm despite the gravity of the situation. Kate managed only a few bites, but she smiled watching her family share this simple meal together. The children told her about their day at school, maintaining a sense of normalcy that everyone desperately needed. As night fell, Kate experienced a brief surge of energy that allowed for longer conversations. She and William talked about their early days together, laughing softly over memories of university mishaps and their awkward first attempts at royal protocols. These shared recollections felt like gifts, reminding them both of the joy that had built the foundation of their love. The children took turns reading to Kate from their favorite books, their young voices filling the room with familiar stories that had marked countless bedtimes throughout their lives. Kate's eyes fluttered closed during these readings, but her peaceful expression showed she was listening to every word, storing these final moments with her children in whatever corner of consciousness remained available to her. William's family arrived that evening, understanding that this might be their last opportunity to see Kate. The conversations were brief but meaningful, with each person offering words of gratitude for the love and joy Kate had brought to their family. Even formal relationships softened in the face of impending loss. With genuine affection replacing protocol and duty, Kate asked for specific music to be played, pieces that had marked important moments in their relationship and family life. The gentle melodies filled the room as evening deepened into night, creating an atmosphere of peace rather than despair. She had always believed that music could express emotions that words couldn't capture, and these familiar songs told the story of their love without need for further explanation. The night passed slowly, with family members taking turns sitting beside Kate's bed, while others rested fitfully in nearby chairs. William never left her side, holding her hand and whispering reassurances about his love and his promises to care for their children exactly as she would want. Kate's breathing had become labored, but she occasionally squeezed his hand to show she heard and understood his words. As dawn approached, Kate's condition became more fragile. The children were gently awakened, so they could be present for these final hours. They climbed carefully onto the bed, arranging themselves around their mother like they had during countless family movie nights. The ordinariness of this familiar position provided comfort during these most extraordinary and difficult moments. Kate's eyes opened one final time as the early morning light filled the room. She looked at each face surrounding her. William's devoted expression, Charlotte's tearful but brave smile, George's serious concentration as he tried to memorize this moment, and Louis's sleepy confusion at the unusual early morning gathering. Her lips moved slightly, and though no sound emerged, everyone understood she was saying goodbye with all the love her weakened body could manage. Kate's final breath came as gently as a sigh, barely disturbing the peaceful silence of the room. William felt her hand relax in his, and he knew immediately that she was gone. The children, understanding what had happened without needing explanation, remained close to their mother, their quiet tears the only sound in the morning stillness. William sat motionless for several minutes, unable to fully comprehend that the woman who had been his partner, his love and his anchor for so many years, was no longer there. The children looked to him for guidance, and somehow he found the strength to gather them close, whispering that Mommy was no longer in pain and that she would always love them, even though they couldn't see her anymore. The doctor arrived within the hour, officially confirming what the family already knew. Staff members who had served Kate faithfully were quietly informed, their professional composure breaking as they absorbed the news. The palace machinery that would handle the public announcement began moving with practiced efficiency. But William insisted on several hours of private family time before the world learned of their loss. The children's reactions varied according to their ages and personalities. Charlotte cried quietly but seemed to understand the finality of what had happened. George asked practical questions about what would happen next, his young mind trying to process the enormity of their changed circumstances. Louis clung to William, not fully grasping that his mother wouldn't wake up again, but sensing that something fundamental had shifted in their world. William's first responsibility was ensuring his children felt secure, despite their devastating loss. He gathered them in the sitting room and spoke honestly about their grief, explaining that missing Mummy was natural and that they could always talk to him about their feelings. He assured them that their daily routines would continue and that the people who loved them would help take care of them. The practical arrangements that followed felt surreal to William. Decisions about funeral plans, official statements, and protocol requirements demanded his attention when all he wanted was to sit quietly with his memories of Kate. Yet he understood that handling these matters properly was one final way he could honor his wife and protect their children from unnecessary scrutiny during their grief. The outpouring of love from the public, once the announcement was made, surprised everyone with its intensity. Flowers appeared outside palace gates within hours, and messages of sympathy arrived from around the world. The British people, who had watched Kate grow from a shy university student into a beloved princess, mourned her loss as if she had been a member of their own families. The funeral planning became an exercise in balancing Kate's private wishes with public expectations. She had requested simplicity and focus on celebration rather than mourning, wanting the service to reflect the joy she had found in life rather than the sadness of its ending. William worked closely with palace officials to ensure every detail honored her memory while providing comfort to those who loved her. The children participated in planning aspects of their mother's memorial service, choosing flowers she had loved and suggesting music that reminded them of happy family times. This involvement helped them feel connected to the process rather than simply swept along by events beyond their understanding. Their contributions ensured that Kate's personality and preferences were reflected in every element of the ceremony. In the quiet evenings following Kate's death, William began reading her letters to the children, not the ones she had written for future milestones, but notes she had left for these immediate days of grief. Each message contained comfort and encouragement, reminding them of specific happy memories and reassuring them about their father's love and capability as a single parent. The weeks after the funeral brought the challenge of establishing new routines without Kate. William made deliberate choices to maintain family traditions she had established, while also creating space for their grief. Sunday morning pancakes continued, but now the children helped make them. Bedtime stories resumed, with William attempting Kate's different character, voices to varying degrees of success that made the children giggle through their tears. William found unexpected comfort in the condolence letters that arrived from ordinary people, sharing their own experiences with loss. Reading about how others had navigated similar grief reminded him that while his circumstances were unique, the fundamental challenge of losing a beloved spouse and raising children alone was something many people had faced and survived. As autumn deepened, William noticed small signs that his family was beginning to heal while still honoring Kate's memory. Charlotte had started drawing pictures of happy memories with her mother. George spoke about Kate in present tense sometimes, as if she were simply in another room. Louis continued asking when Mummy would come home, but these questions came less frequently and with less distress. The final wave had been Kate's gentle departure from their lives, and the last look had been her peaceful gaze at her beloved family. Now William faced the enormous responsibility of carrying their love story forward through the children who embodied the best of both parents. Kate's legacy would live on, not in grand monuments or public memorials, but in the daily choices he made to raise their children with the same love, wisdom, and grace that she had brought to every aspect of their shared life.